Greetings. You're listening to Rebels Remembered, featuring Caitlin DeFord and Kelsey DeFord.
Greetings, travelers across the galaxy. I am Kelsey.
I am Caitlin.
And this is Rebels Remembered, and we are currently still in Season 2. And the episode we are reviewing today is Season 2, Episode 18, Shroud of Darkness. Shroud of Darkness originally aired on March 2nd, 2016. The synopsis reads, Kanan, Ezra, and Ahsoka return to the Jedi Temple on Lothal, seeking answers about the Inquisitors' ability to continually track the rebels. This was written by one of our favorite people, Henry Gilroy, and was directed by Saul Ruiz.
So you can definitely tell with this episode that we're winding down. We're getting closer to the end of season 2. I think we have a couple more episodes after this, but I think this is kind of going with the overall arcing theme of this season, which is the Inquisitors.
Yeah.
And them continuously hunting our crew. So, some trivia on this. We do see a hologram of Anakin Skywalker, and he wears a never-before-seen training outfit in a holocron recording. Which, another thing that I learned about this was, he's not in the Clone Wars style, because Rebels, Clone Wars is different styles, but also, they mainly based him off of Matt Lanter, who voices him. So they brought more of him into the design of this character. Of him.
Yeah, I could tell that. He definitely looks, excuse me, God. He definitely looks like softer. His features are definitely softer, and that could just be the art style, but I can definitely see them being inspired by Matt, who got to return to voice him. Initially, I thought it was the same getup as Clone Wars until you look on the front of his tunic, and he's got the Jedi emblem. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, I've never seen him wear that before, so this is different.
Yeah.
But I thought it was just a design choice. I didn't know it was an actual different outfit. So that was interesting.
Yeah. The ancient artwork in the Jedi Temple includes humanoid beings riding on what appear to be giant wolves in this temple, which is
foreshadowing
for a later season. So the design of the Jedi Dojo created for this episode was in the Star Wars Kanan number 7 comic, published in October of 2015. The lightsabers also in the dojo were repurposed and redressed animation props from Clone Wars. You can see Kit Fisto, Luminara's, and Temple Guard lightsabers. And I remember when this episode came out, people were literally taking the screenshot and trying to figure out. Yeah, and some of them did. They're there's Kit Fisto's lightsaber,
I remember watching that scene going, okay, that's who's on the wall, but me, I don't really pay attention much to lightsabers. I'm sorry. I know what Anakin and Obi-Wan's looks like.
Yeah, I know them too.
But anyone else's, I'm kind of ignorant. I don't want to say dumb, but just ignorant on how their designs. But part of me was feeling that, okay, I bet you there's some Easter eggs, but I wasn't the person that was going to go down that big of a rabbit hole and try to figure it out. So.
I just went on the internet and found the people that do it for me. You don't need to dig. You can just find people that do it. For Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber training, the Rebels team reviewed Episode 3 era reference footage of stunt coordinator Nick Gillard giving a lightsaber lesson to a video games team. So there's a video game, I can't remember the name of it. If you're watching the video version of this on YouTube, I'm going to have a graphic of it. I just can't think of the name of it. Where they actually brought in Hayden Christensen doing different moves.
Oh.
And he was putting his own spin on Anakin, but also Nick Gillard was also the one working on that game too. Alright, so we begin this episode right into the action where Kanan and Ezra are on this planet called Uslan, however you say it. It never says in the episode, but
the Wikipedia is filled with so much knowledge. All the Star Wars nerds just know our stuff, apparently.
They're trying to find a potential secret base, which this has been a common theme throughout the season, trying to establish a base. And of course, I think Ezra says, well, this ain't gonna work out, because they're immediately in this combat fight with the Inquisitors who have found them, which we'll get to it later. I was still trying to figure out how they keep finding them.
Yeah. Also, is this the first time that we see Ezra physically fight the Inquisitors?
Oh,
because I know in Legacy he charged at him when the door shut. In Future of the Force, they pushed him against a wall.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is the first time that he's had to fight them.
Didn't he kind of fight them briefly in Always Two There Are? Briefly? I mean, it was a couple,
yeah.
deflecting.
I forgot that. I don't know why I forgot
It wasn't
that.
a big thing, because they, captured him.
But then I wonder, because Ezra keeps saying they keep finding us, so maybe they just keep fighting them every time they try to find a planet to go to. But yeah, I do wonder, how are they...
I guess through the Force, but...
Finding them? Well, I've just got, like, the Inquisitors themselves are just such a puzzle to me. I don't know why. Like, I get it. Like, you found Jedi that had possible dark side leanings, and then you corrupted them, and then you took them in, and they just hunt Jedi. Mm-hmm. But how they're able to, and we'll talk about it later, like, go through the Force and use the Force on things that I wouldn't think a dark side user will be able to do. Mm-hmm. I just got a lot of questions about that.
That was my question too, but I'm wondering if it's just like, the Grand Inquisitor was following them through the Force too in season 1 a couple of times. Except that time he used
using
the tracking device.
Yeah. Like Luminara's corpse. That was dark.
So they're dueling, and then Kanan and the Seventh Sister have this conversation, which I thought was humorous, where he says, "I don't go for crazy." Yeah. And it's Freddie and his wife talking.
Like, Sarah's just, like, hitting on him in the cartoon. That was funny.
The fifth brother sends Ezra, like, off a cliff. And Kanan's there to grab him, which I love this little fight sequence, though, because they're using the Force to push and pull each other to go into, like, fighting, which is interesting.
It's definitely like a dance, but it's also, like, you can see how, like, not only they grow into Jedi, but how they are able to work together. Like, you can see that develop over the course of the series, which is really cool.
So Kanan grabs him, saving him from certain death. He throws Ezra topside, and after some more fighting, Ezra has a plan to jump. And I think he has, like, Ezra's dangling.
Yeah, props to Kanan for being able to fight the Inquisitors, both of them, throw this kid up in the air and catch him simultaneously, or while trying to fight.
Right.
Yeah, that's a lot going on.
And while he's dangling, that's when he's like, "I'm busy at the moment," and he's like, until he's using the Force, some Force power here. And they jump off this cliff, and thanks to his connection to animals, a TBD rises to save them, so we get the TBD.
TBDs are back, yay! I didn't even know they lived on Lothal, but we talked about this. It might have been a budget thing. We don't want to create another creature.
We'll just use the TBDs, yeah. Kanan is both impressed and bewildered that Ezra's able to do that. They head back to the Phantom and the fleet. Kanan doesn't understand how the Inquisitors know their every move, and he says they need help. He says we're going to need some help on this, which in verse they're going to talk to Ahsoka.
I do think what's interesting about that scene there is that Kanan is very concerned that they can't keep staying with the fleet. Mm-hmm. Because it keeps putting them in danger because they got these Inquisitors following them. To me, that's a big step for Kanan specifically, because we started this season with him wanting nothing to do with the fleet. He wants to go on his own, and I think this kind of shows, and other things throughout the other episodes show that he's, like, more wanting to stay with them. Mm-hmm. And if he can't, Plus, we got Hera, who's now the Phoenix leader and everything, so that complicates things. But yeah, I did wonder, like, about that little, just like one line he said specifically shows some development in him, but also I was confused because I'm like, they found you in Legacy because you had to say what base you were at on tape. Now they can just be able to sense where you are. It's kind of, to me, it's a little plot thing that I'm kind of like, I don't know.
And that's one thing I did not like about this episode, is I don't think we ever get that answered. How they're able to find them. Mm-hmm. Other than just through the Force.
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't Kanan know that?
It's almost like, because the Inquisitors are so integral to this season, like, well, we need to have a reason why they keep showing up, and we need to have them keep finding them and keep being an obstacle, rather than just see what season 1 was, which was mostly the Empire. Finding them.
So they go to see Ahsoka, and this is where she's watching the holo recording of a Jedi lightsaber lesson. Of course, the Jedi is her former master, Anakin Skywalker. And I think this interesting part where Ezra says, "I've used this for my own training," which is interesting.
That's interesting, yeah, that he's actually on, I guess, I don't know, it's Kanan's holocron or just old training holocrons. I don't know where they would get one of those, but yeah, that's interesting that he.
Well, holocrons
that.
hold knowledge, so
Oh,
maybe-
that's true. It may. I guess it's Kanan's holocron he's referring to. I'm assuming.
I'm
so.
assuming so. Unless
Yeah, how many
one.
gigabytes are on a holocron? How much data can that hold?
Ahsoka tells of how kind Anakin was and how he loved his friends. And Ezra asked her, "Do you know what happened to him?" And she says the last time she saw him, he was going to save the Chancellor, and then the war ended, and the Jedi were
Hunted down.
Now this part is new information for anybody that's a fan of Clone Wars, because this is before the final season of Clone Wars.
So really, if you're a Clone Wars fan, the last time we see... Now, we have to keep in mind, Star Wars Rebels came out in 2014. Okay, so I believe The Wrong Jedi, which is the ending of Season 4 of Clone Wars, has this whole thing with Ahsoka being framed, and then it's her and Anakin talking, and she walks down these steps, and she just leaves the Order.
Mm-hmm.
So for fans of Clone Wars, that was sort of that incarnation's series finale, because Cartoon Network lost the licensing rights to even air new episodes. A year later, they came out with the lost episodes that were released,
Right.
I don't know what the streaming device was at the time or what network it was airing on. But this is new information for us. However, I don't know at the time if they knew they were going to make hold on, I think Wrong Jedi might be season 5. Anyway, I'm getting confused. Season 7 is the final season of Clone Wars.
Right.
Didn't come out until after Rebels. And so I've seen season 7 of Clone Wars, but I don't remember the last meeting between Ahsoka and Anakin. What she says here, it almost sounds like the beginning of Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
But I don't think that's what actually happens in season 7. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just them not understanding. They're not quite sure yet on what their last meeting was.
True. I love how Ezra asked, "Do you know what happened to him?" And I feel like this is gonna bring this point back up later. We already talked about. I think she does know. She just doesn't want to admit it to herself.
Yeah,
that it's him. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Kanan enters the room and he's like, "I can't. We can't just keep running into these guys and becoming more than we can handle." Of course, with them trying to establish a base with the rebellion. And Ahsoka says, in times like these, they'd ask Yoda or Obi-Wan for help. And I love this part because, for some reason, Ahsoka's put on this pedestal of she knows more than Kanan, and because I guess she's older than him, a little bit older than him. But she kind of reveals here that, like, we should ask, Yoda or Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that, Kanan was like, we're going to need help on this. Cut to Ahsoka. Oh, she's going to give us help. Oh, actually.
Yeah.
And Kanan decides they can do just that. They'll go to the Jedi Temple on Lothal and talk to Yoda. Question. Sorry, I don't know why I yelled that. I don't know. Okay, why go back? Because in the season 1 episode where they're on this temple and Ezra goes through that challenge or whatever, or test or whatever, Kanan says the Empire might have this temple under surveillance. So why are we going back to talk to Yoda? Why are we putting ourselves in danger?
Yeah, and then I think in season 1 Ezra says, should we use this as a base? Who knows what's in there? And he says the past. Let's revisit the past again.
Yeah,
so,
I understand.
It was kind of like contradicting season 1, but it just might be convenience sake. But I do wonder, why that one specifically. Going back to the holocron, does a holocron give locations of other Jedi temples in the systems and things like that? Because if it was, couldn't you go to the convenient one that's more close to you? Not the planet where you're being hunted down.
Exactly.
And, you kind of don't have a good reputation there. Well, really don't have a good reputation anywhere at this point, but...
Maybe I'm digging into it, but yeah, I never understood why they... Now, when I first watched this episode, I was like, yeah, I love, let's go to the
revisit season 1, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. And then I think Dad was like, why are they going back there? Isn't it under surveillance? I'm like, oh yeah, it's a good point. So they go to Lothal, and the same spot that Kanan and Ezra stood when they first opened it in season 1, and Ahsoka says that it's best if they open it because she left the Order and she's no longer a Jedi, which I don't think either of them were aware of that. Now, Kanan might have been, but I don't think Ezra was aware of that.
Yeah, I don't think he was either because he was like, "Oh yeah, y'all just stand there and y'all open it." And I don't know if we get his reaction or anything. I don't know if it's just like shocked Pikachu face or anything, but I do wonder like if he probably didn't because again we're viewing it through Ezra's perspective, and Ezra doesn't know anything about Ahsoka,
Right?
Unlike people that have been watching the show.
Yeah,
you know.
true. I mean, I didn't know much about her either, but I did know she did leave the Order. I knew that much about her. So they meditate or whatever and use the Force on the structure, but then it moves, which I found interesting.
Yeah, the original door that they went through in season 1 moves upward, and the new door comes down.
And I think Kanan says, "New problem, new door." And I'm like, how big is this thing? How far does it...
How far does it go underground? And the rooms change around? Like, just... On the outside, looking at it, it just looks like a stalagmite sticking up out of the ground. They realize it is that intricate.
So they go inside the temple, and they come to this, conversation about, the best way to contact it would be meditation.
So yeah, they start to meditate, and then a doorway appears, and it only appears to Kanan. So he's like, "Hey, there's a door," and then they're like, "We don't see it. What door?" They're kind of looking around, and then Kanan's like, "Well, I guess it's only a path meant for him," and then he walks into like this very like lit sort of area.
And I love the way it's animated because he says, "I see a door," and if you look the way it's animated, he's the only one that's lit by that.
Yeah, like he's sort of lit by like the white light, and then Ezra and Ahsoka are off to the side, and they're kind of in the shadow. So like even like the animation lets us know that only Kanan can see that.
See it, yeah.
So on the other side, he finds himself in a combat training room. Again, the same one that appears in the Kanan comic. And a temple guard awaits. The Jedi ask how he can defeat Vader and the Inquisitors. They try to fight and you will fail, the guard says. You will die and your apprentice will become a servant of evil. We always, of course, we know what happens in this episode, that he is able to become a Jedi Knight. I don't know what trial this would be for him, other than discovering it's good not to bite kind of thing. But also, did you know that this temple guard was going to be the Inquisitor?
I did not. It took me by surprise, and you could totally tell it's Jason Isaacs.
I was going to say that. I was like, when I first watched this, I was like, he's got an interesting voice. Why does it sound like he's using some sort of voice modulator to kind of cover what... And then I rewatched and I'm like, it's totally Jason Isaacs, but just kind of his voice is kind of disguised. But if you know what Jason Isaacs sounds like, you're gonna know it's Jason Isaacs. But at the time, I was very, very shocked Pikachu face by that. The guard demands Kanan stand aside so he can destroy Ezra before he turns to the dark side. I was a little bit nervous right here. We've talked about it a little bit, but Tumblr had all these postings of Dark Blueberry, which, if people don't know, Ezra was called Blueberry in the fandom for whatever reason, I don't know. And so Dark Blueberry was like...
Or Blackberry.
Or Blackberry was like the dark side version of Ezra, and so when I heard, this temple guard, when I first watched it, I was like, what's he talking about? Is this going to be foreshadowing? Is Ezra going to go to the dark side? I still had some of those fears, but also part of me was like, knowing this is a Jedi temple, it's about confronting those issues. So Kanan says, I won't let that happen, and then begin to fight. Okay, here's the part of the plot where I had trouble.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the Inquisitors arrive, once again tracking the Jedi, and we still don't know how they're doing it. Inside, Ahsoka and Ezra discuss Master Yoda. The Tracking claims that when she was young, he seemed happier, but as the Clone Wars dragged on, he carried a great burden, a deep sorrow, as if he knew before anyone else that one time was ending and another beginning. Ezra then vanishes after this moment, which is interesting. It's like right when you're discussing the dude, the person that knows the least about him is the one that disappears. So I'm like, did he hear any of that? Is she talking to herself now?
I'm wondering if he was listening to her, but then went back to kind of being,
What did you think about her quote about Yoda?
It's interesting to, I didn't really think about because I feel like I'm really bad about looking at Yoda as a figurehead and as a wise, you give us the answer, you know all of the answers, and this kind of shows that, and we'll get into him later when he appears to Ezra, but it kind of shows that while he is wise, I think he tells Ezra he was afraid.
Yeah, to me that was new information for me. I never considered the fact that he could be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we're told Jedi teachings, like, you're feeling a certain way, you probably need to meditate about it, you know?
Exactly.
That's very sort of spiritual kind of beliefs. So Ezra then vanishes. He then appears in a great star field, and I think this is reminiscent of Season 1 when he first met Yoda, so I knew what was about to happen when that happened. He's now opposite Master Yoda. Unlike their last encounter, he can now see the ancient being. Growing your abilities are, Yoda says, and with them danger. What did you think about seeing Yoda physically in this episode?
It wasn't a big shocker because I think in the promotions they did show him, if I remember correctly, or he was either in the teaser or trailer or something. I remember still it wasn't a big shock seeing him there. But I had questions. Is he force projecting? Like, what's happening here?
Where's his physical body? I know can't be his physical body. It's not a force ghost, but he's like you said, like a force projection. I'm assuming that's what it is. Because I do feel like temples are their own conduits to other temples, so I do wonder if he's in a temple somewhere, or maybe it's just because he is so powerful, he's just able to reach across space and time. Not space and time, just space.
Yeah.
When he says growing your abilities are, and with them danger, that's still kind of hinting on some of these obstacles that Ezra's going to face, because he had mentioned that, I think in Season 1, when he was like, I sense in you much fear and much anger, because Ezra ultimately wants to protect everybody. But we can see where that can lead if you're not keeping yourself in check with, like, the dark side and stuff.
Well, even Ahsoka says, about Anakin, he cared deeply about his friends. And unfortunately, sometimes with the best intentions, he just went down the wrong way.
So Kanan and the Temple Guard then continue their battle. Is this the limit of your knowledge? The Master Warrior asks. The attacks are never ending, so Kanan reaches for an additional weapon, which I find funny that it was a red lightsaber. I don't know why I was like, that's kind of red one. You will never be strong enough to save your people, the guard says, and you will perish for your failure. At that moment, 2 more Temple Guards then join the fight.
Also, have you noticed that the way he was fighting him was the Inquisitor's way of fighting him? It's similar to that.
Well, now I do. Dang. When I first watched it, even the second time, I was like, I know it's him. I was like, this is different. I don't know. The mask. I don't know. Maybe it was a Clark Kent thing for me. I don't know. So we head back to Ahsoka, who's still meditating. She then hears a voice. It is familiar. It calls to her. It is Anakin. And it's Matt Lanter. Ahsoka, why did you leave? He asks. His tone then grows dark and angry. You were selfish. You abandoned me. You failed me. Do you know what I've become? And then the image changes to his new self, which is Darth Vader. And Ahsoka screams. To me, this was sort of like her confronting something that she already knew but was afraid to say, but also it's sort of her confronting her own guilt.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like part of her is thinking, well, if I stayed, he wouldn't become Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Which...
No. He still would have.
I mean, that kid was so messed up from the beginning. That, like, even little Annie, so messed up in the beginning that, there's certain things that I think even as people, it's like, you can have the best friend in the world, but their decisions are their decisions. And you being there or not may not have had any impact.
Later, after, I can't remember where it's at in the episode, we cut back to her and she stands up and says there's still a way. So it's kind of sad, but she really thinks I can save him.
Yeah.
Which, no. He's gone.
But we also have to remember, she wasn't there to see him kill the youngling. She didn't find him on Mustafar like Obi-Wan. She didn't see him get burned to a crisp. Didn't see any of that. And so I think that's also part of it. But it's also, you want to believe in the best of people.
So Ezra continues talking with Master Yoda, and he asks him how they can destroy Vader and his Inquisitors, and this is where Yoda tells him of the end of the Jedi and how the Clone War warped who they were. And we have this little montage of it showing the clones and them fighting and all that. And so he's kind of I don't want to say he's warning Ezra, but he's just kind of telling him, like, hey.
Don't be so quick to jump into a fight.
Yeah.
You don't have all the answers, you don't have all the understanding. But we're seeking this dude for answers, and I love Yoda. But I'm not the most patient person with it when it comes to him. It's like, no, give me a straightforward answer. Don't give me a metaphor.
Yeah, fortune cookie or, thing, saying or whatever. And Ezra kind of challenges that with, but is it wrong to fight for your friends? And then Yoda says he was consumed by fear through fighting. That's when Ezra's like, you were afraid? He's like, yeah, I was afraid. And then he says, one of my favorite quotes in this episode is, a challenge lifelong it is not to bend fear into anger. It's always going to be a struggle. The key is to meditate and think about it and,
reflect.
Not act on it,
Yeah.
The dust and rock begin to fall around them, and it shows the Inquisitors are raising the temple outside. I think they used her droid, to recognize it was a temple.
But how are they even manipulating this temple? That was my problem.
Why was there red lighting? Did you notice that part?
Oh, I did notice that. On the ground in front of them, there was sort of like this red lighting. So it was like, okay, they're using the dark side of the Force.
To force it open?
I guess that's what's happening, but part of me was like, well, Ahsoka said, no, I can't do it because I'm not a Jedi. But these Inquisitors can walk up and do stuff to it.
I think she could have, but it was the principle of the thing. Like, she didn't feel like she deserved, not really deserved, but
okay.
It's better I think she says it's best if you two open.
Okay.
Kanan's battle rages on, but he is beaten and the walls are crumbling. You cannot fight forever, the temple guard says. And this is where Kanan finally acknowledges the truth. He deactivates his lightsaber and he says he can't protect Ezra forever. All he can do is train him the best he can. The guard raises his weapon one last time and knights him. He is now a Jedi. So, is this his last test? Question mark.
Oh.
But we know he's going to be challenged later on.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I feel like being a Jedi, it's a huge deal to become a knight. That doesn't mean that
there won't be other challenges.
All your struggles are over.
Yeah.
You're not going to struggle anymore, which we all know that Kanan will at the end, next season. But yeah, it was interesting if this was his last trial, I'm wondering.
Yeah. But you think it's going to be the last trial, and it's just not. As we know.
It doesn't go the way we thought.
I did think it's interesting, it sort of parallels Ahsoka as well, when he says, I can't protect Ezra forever. It's sort of kind of like acknowledging that I can do all I can do is all I can do. I can train him the best I know how, but it's ultimately up to him to make the decisions and the choices, and I can't quit, worrying about that. He'll always worry about him, like a dad, but his second adopted dad. But I think it's, again, acknowledging other people's choices when they make.
And Ezra is talking about to Yoda, what is the choice of fighting or not fighting?
Yeah.
So it's all about
Which
choice.
is really interesting because Kanan chooses not to fight here. Mm-hmm. And while Ezra's really wanting to gung-ho to jump into the fight and really figure out how to get these Inquisitors off their butt. Understandable. But, it's sort of like different parallels. Like, they're on separate journeys in the temple, but they do kind of connect in a really strange way. But
the temple guard removes his mask, revealing himself to be the Grand Inquisitor, and he says, "You are now what I once was, a knight of the Jedi Order." He then tells Kanan to go and he will delay the enemy. New information for us that he was a knight. I mean, I assume most dark side users, this is debatable in canon, like, most of them are fallen Jedi.
Most of them are fallen Jedi, yeah. And it's interesting, I will say, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're good.
His design, in this, when he takes the mask off, he no longer has the red, he no longer has the yellow in his eyes, he's sort of like, got kind of like gray eyes. I don't know if that's just standard of his species or not, but it's interesting to see him not be on the dark side, sort of the way he's designed. I did wonder if this is obviously it's not a Force ghost. It's just a vision from the temple, but again, temples are funky, so I'm just like, okay, he's not alive. He's obviously died, but how is he here? And he's giving him information about himself, and
that was a question mine.
Yeah. But then there's another theory that I looked at. I don't know if it's a theory or if a writer had said this. I might be pulling it out of my butt. I don't know. That someone said Yoda's giving them the visions. I heard that. I'm like he's talking to Ezra, but he's also simultaneously giving Ahsoka and Kanan the 2 visions.
I don't really see that because I feel like it's more the temple doing it.
I guess. But then I'm like, did Yoda know this guy? The Grand Inquisitor before he was the Grand Inquisitor?
Oh, you don't know what Dave Filoni's come out about him? So apparently in I haven't seen Clone Wars, but apparently when Ahsoka gets framed and she's being captive and she's surrounded by
Is
temple
he one of
guards.
the temple guards standing there?
Yeah, he said he is one of the temple guards. Standing
What?
there. And he said that was a part of the reason he started to distrust the Order. It wasn't his total reason.
I
for
know,
falling,
but the fact that he's now saying that he was in the room when that was going on is like totally new information. How did I not know this?
I don't know. He said it. I'll have to find the interview, but he said it
What?
a couple years ago about him. I think it was a little bit after this episode aired. So Ezra is still talking with Yoda, and he tells him, "We've chosen. We're going to fight." And then Yoda kind of shakes his head, tells him to find Malachor. Why?
Which we learn later on is not good news.
It's not. Why? Why, Yoda? Now, when I first watched this, I thought it was a person, too.
I thought it was a person or a planet, but I wasn't sure which one.
The Inquisitors they're inside now and ready to strike, but the Grand Inquisitor appears before them. They are dumbfounded. Okay, I wrote in my notes, this part is stupid. You can hate me, Internet, but the Grand Inquisitor closes in, flanked by other guardsmen, and delivers blow upon the dark side warriors. They vanish in a flash of white light. Are they ghosts? Are they a distraction? What happened when they came together? Did it just blind them? I have so many questions.
Flashbanged them.
I mean, literally, in my notes you can see, it literally says, this part is stupid. I don't like that part. It don't make sense.
My question is like, whoa, that now they're seeing things? Well, we just established at the beginning that only Kanan could see this, only Ahsoka can see this, only Ezra can see this. And suddenly they can see 3 temple guards that only Kanan could see like 2 minutes ago. Like, yeah, it was just kind of weird.
I didn't like that part. I remember watching it with Dad and like came together and it was like shing, and then my dad goes, "That's stupid." And I was like, "What happened? Did it kill him? What?" I mean, and we never go back to them until the end of the episode, so I don't know. Maybe he did flashbang them. I don't know. So the temple's rumbling, and they meet up, and they make their way out, and of course Ahsoka has a sweet moment where she stops and looks back and sees Yoda, who smiles and waves at her. She smiles back before following Kanan and Ezra. The 3 make it back to the Phantom, and Ezra relays Yoda's message, who's Malachor, and Ahsoka says it's not a person, it's a place. Which kind of reveals that she knows it, interestingly enough.
Apparently she knows that it's a planet. So.
While the Jedi are safe, the temple is lost, now in the hands of the Empire and the Sith. I wonder if this foreshadows later into season 4.
Sorry, I sighed because I hated that about season 4. I'm not gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest about it. I hated that about season 4. We can get to it, but maybe it's just.
I was just curious about that. Vader is there, and he says, "My master will be most pleased with this discovery." And the 5th brother says that the Jedi are growing in their power, and of course, in a way that only James Earl Jones can reply, is it will be their undoing. So now there's just foreboding still for this season.
Mm-hmm. And what's cool about that part is you already know Vader is there before you even see him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's the music sting. Obviously, when you're in breathing, you know, but even before that, I knew he was probably going to show
walking
up.
up to the temple.
Yeah. So we still don't know how the Inquisitors are tracking them. Maybe I'll have to do my own research and figure it out, but I don't know, this episode I'm like, I don't want to do more research, tell me. Don't tell me just go to a planet, that'll solve your problems. Not. I want to know more concrete evidence than,
Yeah.
they're tracking us. How? the entire episode. We never get it figured out at all.
No, we just got instructions to go to this place. Why? We don't know. Yoda told us to.
And then it's like, okay, we'll go to this place. They'll probably follow us. Wink. You know? Like, I kind of already knew that they were going to follow.
Yeah. So what did you rate this episode?
I think I gave it a 7.
I'll give it a 7.
Like, I'm being very cynical about the whole Inquisitor thing, but it was a pretty good episode.
I feel so bad because this is one of my favorite episodes, but I guess looking at it now, when it first came out, I absolutely loved this episode.
Yeah.
Might just be because my guy got knighted, but you know.
Yeah.
That's part of it. But I guess it's because knowing what we know what happens on Malachor. Rewatching it made me go, oh, why though? Why do we gotta go to Malachor?
Like if there was any other reason to go there besides Yoda told us to, I would have been more on board. But just him saying go to this place and you'll find all the answers, and they find something, but it ain't answers. So like, yeah, going back and looking on it, it's like. I know it's gonna happen and I don't like it. Like, why are we going there?
Yeah, I think looking at it, when you first watch this, you have no...
You're very invested.
If you have no knowledge of what happens later, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you have more questions when you go back and rewatch it. You know.
Yeah, when you start to really think about how it's connected and things, it can get a little bit aggravating, I guess. I want to say confusing, but it's really more aggravation.
It's interesting to see all 3 Force users and the things that they're dealing with and the questions that they have. But then they come together at the end of this episode and to discuss their next move, but also later when they go to Malachor, which stinks. Which I hate to say that too, because really, I mean, the Malachor episode is the finale, and to me, it's still pretty decent.
Oh yeah, I still think like one thing I will say about Rebels is all of their finales are really good. I think.
Yeah.
It's just knowing what happens. I'm kind of like, you know, hesitant to rewatch it, but you know, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, it happened. We can't change it. We can't.
But I will say Malachor definitely to me is a big shift in the series. After that, things just change.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a big turning point for the series, not just season to season, but for the series in general. That was a big shift.